Hashem. Maseches Bava Kame. We are in the midst of the sugyas of Shinu Yiush, and we're going to get it straight in Mirtzeh Hashem. Bezos Hashem Nase ve'Netzliach. Shiur's Leilu Nishma Tov Moira Menachem Ben Akiva. Rus Bas Shalom Sor Bas Moshe. Refuas Noch Lionel Ben Yuli Oria Chana Pnina Chaya Bas Gol Rochel. Yudis Bas Rivka. Yisoch Shachol Yisrael. Says the Gemara Samchvav Amud Beis, we're going to restart from Eisvei Abaye. What we saw yesterday, we definitely have to see again today. Yesterday, the way I explained it was not sufficient. No, I definitely should read, we should read also Tosafos and get the story of the Korban much clearer. Bezos Hashem. Eisvei Abaye leRabba. We had an argument yesterday between Rabba and Rav Yosef. Generally speaking, the argument is Yiush koneh or not koneh. Rabbi says Yiush is koneh. In other words, when a person stole and then the owner was miyash, gave up hope, then he's koneh. And Rav Yosef says that the thief is koneh, it belongs to the thief now, and only has to give back his money. And Rav Yosef says no. Rav Yosef says that Yiush is not koneh. Yiush, just because the person gave up hope, does not process it, doesn't make it more belonging to the Ganev. Esvei Abaye l'Rabba. Abaye challenges Rabba that said that Yiush is koneh. It says in the Torah, Korbonoi veloi hagozul. Korbonoi, the Torah says a person has to bring his own korban and not bring a korban which is stolen, a gozul korban. So now, as an introduction, I would say there are two issues bringing a korban. One would be the korban is just simply not yours, and the Torah wants you to bring your own korban. The other issue may possibly be, and this is something touched upon by Tosafos, mitzvah bo ba'avera. You're not allowed to do a mitzvah if you acquired whatever you acquired through an avera. If you stole lulav, everybody knows that a stolen lulav, you can't be yoitza. You stole a lulav, you can't be yoitza with it for shaking the daled meanings. It says korbanoi, a person should bring his own korban, excluding the stolen one. Hechidami, what exactly is the story? In the Havamina, we think that the person stole an animal, a regular free-range animal, so to speak, and then the Ganev was makdish it. What's the story? If the person stole it before Yiush, yeah, and then the person was miyash, and then, if he stole it before Yiush and he dedicated it before Yiush, lama likro? In other words, if there was not even Yiush, if he just pulled the animal from his neighbor's backyard and nothing else happened, I don't need a pasuk for that. I don't need a pasuk to tell me that the animal is stolen, shmolen, is just not his animal. Shita, of course. Why is it Shita? Yeah, I can read to you Tosafos, and I recommend you do the same. Says Tosafos, what I basically told you yesterday. Says Tosafos in the top of the page. Even if he was makdish the animal, ain't a kadosh. He can't be makdish. Hekdish just doesn't stick, doesn't apply. The gozel velonis yashu abaylim. If a person stole and there was no Yiush baylim yet, shnein ein yicholen hakdish. Neither of them can be makdish. As I told you yesterday, in order to be makdish, it says the person should be makdish his house. What do you mean his house? Says the Gemara later on, only something that is in your control and your ownership, you can be makdish. But if something is not yours, or it's yours but it's been held hostage by someone, you can't be makdish. And that's not our issue here. That's a different pasuk. So obviously, if there was no Yiush whatsoever, what's the chiddush? Of course, it's pshita that it doesn't work. Yeah. Ela alav must be what? Le'achal Yiush. Must be, we're talking here, le'achal Yiush. What does it mean, le'achal Yiush? We're reviewing yesterday's thing. Le'achal Yiush means that the person took the animal, okay? The bailim was, oy vel chesron kis, woe to me, I lost the goats or whatever, or the sheep. And then he was makdish. Aha, okay. Meaning there was shinui, there was not shinui, excuse me, there was kinyan, Yiush, and then the Torah says that, you see, your korban doesn't work. Your korban is not a good one. How do you interpret that? How do we say that even though there was Yiush, still the korban is not a good korban? Shin mem, that is shma mina. That is to say, Yiush loy kani. You see from here that Yiush does not acquire. We see against your Rabba. We see that Yiush doesn't work. How exactly do we see that? We have to see Tosafos shma mina Yiush lo kani. It's a second Tosafos. Tosafos explains it beautifully, of course. It says Tosafos like this: Ikani, if really Yiush would be koneh, had Shinui been koneh, in other words, if the person stole it, then the Bainim was miyash. And if you are right, Rabbah, Yiush means it completely belongs to the Ganav, and all he has to give is cash, but the goat is his, the animal is his. If that would be the case, then what would you say? Then you say it's mitzvah baba avera. You originally stole it, and therefore you cannot bring it. Says Tosafos wrong. Wow. Mitzvah baba avera doesn't mean any object with a dark past, which in the past used to belong not to you. Now it's completely yours. No. Yeah, why? If the animal belongs to the person, completely his, halachically, yeah, and let's say even he paid for it. It came to his hand, dark past, in the left foot it started, doesn't make a difference. And that's alohe. For example, by lulav, by the way, that's also so the minchas chinuch. The minchas chinuch asks the question: if a person lo aleinu had mamzerim, a boy and a girl mamzerim, was he mekayim peruvu? Funny. So the Maisa, some people say yes. Why? Because at the time when he was doing the avera, there was a very terrible avera. But 9 months later came the boy and the girl, twins. Let's say, yeah, it's not the same time. Mitzvah above avera is only if it's the same time. As you're doing the avera, you're doing the mitzvah. That's not the story over here. Over here, if you stole it and Yiush is koneh, that's it, finished. You're miyash, done. It's his. He's not a nice guy. No shidduch for my daughter. But the Maisa said the korban should be a good korban. Moshe Farash Lekaman, Be'ezras Hashem. Aval, but, Tosafos says he'll explain later. Aval, says Abaye, I have a much better explanation of the pasuk. Iloi kani b'Yiush. What happens, according to, let's say, Rabbi Yosef, and Abaye is now being his advocate, what would be if Yiush is not koneh? Then what? Mifsil umikol makom kodeshu. If, let's say Yiush is not koneh. Wait, if Yiush is not koneh, how can you be makdish it? We're saying it's possible, it's terrible, it's an avera. Don't bring it to Beis Mikdash. We just said a minute ago that if you're miyash, right? You before Yiush, hekdesh doesn't work. Why? If Yiush is not koneh, how come hekdesh works? It's not yet yours. How can you be makdish it? How does that work? Says Tosafos, and I'm skipping a few lines just not to confuse you. Start with the line Mikol Mokoim, with a little aleph Mikol Mokoim. Yesh kan Yiush v'shinui reshus. Welcome to a new kind of shinui called shinui reshus. Shinui reshus we're not going to discuss today except for now. Shinui reshus means as follows. Shinui reshus means, as I showed you in the chart, which you may or may not have gotten yesterday, I highly recommend you look at this chart. Yeah. 1 minute. No, that's kinyan. No. Lat. Let's say a person was koneh through kinyan, chotzer, meshicha, whatever. Then there was Yiush, okay? And then after the Yiush, it moved to a different domain. He sold it on to somebody else. The formula says Yiush plus shinui reshus, not necessarily in this order, is koneh. Some shinuim are strong and they don't need Yiush. They work on them by themselves. For example, shinui ha-maisa. You turn the wood into a table. That's a whole new thing, and we'll explain why at the end of the shiur. Over here, the story is as follows, and I'll tell you very, very nicely, Be'ezras Hashem, what Tosafos says. When a person stole it, and then there was Yiush, yeah, it's not yet his, says Abaye, it's not yet his, but Yiush is a step in the right direction. Yiush means the person gave up hope, and that allows me, that leaves room for a new shinui to take place. Because the person is Yiush and Yiush like a twilight zone, he's already not looking for his stuff. Mimele now, if the person dedicated it to Beis Hamikdash, when the person says Reizu Oilo, you know what happens? It's as if I sold it to my friend Chaim Yankel. If I sold the stolen goods, that's called Shinui Reshus. Yiush plus Shinui Reshus works. So a person before Yiush, nothing happened. You can't be makdish. After Yiush, just like if you sell it, the sale took place, and then boom, everything happens together. Yiush V'Shinui Reshus now means it's completely belonging to the Ganav or his friend. Here too, when you're Makdish it, you did two in one. You're Makdish it to Beis HaMikdash, and thus it became yours for Kapara. Says the Torah, that's ugly. Says the Torah, Yesh Gvul. If the actual Maisa or Dibur of Hekdesh is what helps you steal, that's mitzvah baba beira. That's like I'm shaking a lulav, and at the very same time when I shake the lulav, the owner of the lulav is looking for it frantically. That's already terrible. Again, so Abai claims against Rabba very well. If you're telling me the Yiush is really koneh, then what's the problem? There was Yiush, it's completely mine. Now, the Hekdesh, I'm not using Hekdesh to steal. It's already mine. So now the Hekdesh is something that's completely mine with a dark past. I call met, finished. Now I'm Hekdesh. But if you say, not like you, Rabba, if you say that Yiush is not koneh, Yiush is only one out of two. In the formula, Yiush plus Shinui Reshus, how did I create the Shinui Reshus? How did I move it from the victim further on? By being Makdishit. I moved it from Reuven into Hashem's domain. That alone, that's mitzvah baba beira. And that such a thing would not be tolerated by Hashem, and that would be very good explanation for the posuk. Now, no questions, of course, not right now. And that's what Abai is asking on Rabbah. So now, okay, the question is as follows. Why is the Torah telling me you cannot bring a stolen korban? What does it mean exactly? If I stole the korban, it's completely mine, it's been Yiush and everything else, then the Torah would not say, if my korban, although I originally got it through theft, but now it's completely mine, legally mine, let's say I even paid for it, yeah? That is not called mitzvah baba beira. So it doesn't make sense to say that the Torah has any issues with that. It's not that's not the information we have. And therefore, what you say, Rabbah, does make sense. If the Yiush already took place and you say Yiush is koneh, then why should the Torah not like the korban? But if you say not like you, Rabbah, if we say like me, Abaye, or like Rav Yosef, that Yiush may help together with the next step called Shinui Reshus, it makes sense very well. How did they make the Shinui Reshus? How did they move it to a different domain? By being Makdish. Just saying, boom, that means belongs to Hashem. I'm furthering it away even more from the original person. And that is kinyan. Makes sense. That's mitzvah baba beira. Through your hekdesh, you're stealing. Haywire. No question. So Mimela what? Mimela we say, Abaye says to Rabbi, you don't make sense. Don't make sense because Yiush alone had be koneh. There won't be an issue with the korban. Your questions will come in a few minutes. Excuse me, he says Rove or Rabba. It's either Rove defending Rabba or Rabba. According to you, Abaye, Hodetanya, it says about Tuma, Mishkov Voy v'lo yagozul. Remember? Mishkov Voy v'lo yagozul. Let's say you have a person who has a mattress, and the mattress has the Tuma of Zav. It has a special tuma and slakava tuma. It's only if it belongs to you legally and not gozul. If it was stolen by someone, the thief, his tuma doesn't affect the mattress. Big chidush. Hey chidami, what's the story? Ilam the gozul amra. If you want to tell me that he stole wool, the avdei mishkav, and then he turned it into mishkav, he turned it into a mattress. Let's say. Remember this line. Would anybody in the world say that Shinui Maisa alone is not koneh? Shinui Maisa means what I call in Anglit and Ikaralas, Anglit, physical change. Clear physical human intervention kind of change. There was wool and he made it into some puffy mattress. Would anybody say it's not koneh? So according to you, you're telling me, the history is erased. Now it's mine, so it's legally mine. No, how do you explain it to the Mishkav? If there was a complete change over there, and now it's a whole new ownership, well, it's mine now. Who cares about the dark past? Didn't you just say, I don't care about the dark past? Must be what? The Gozel Mishkav the Chavre. Must be a very, very easy answer. He stole a ready-made mattress. He stole a mattress, right? And that mattress did not change at all. And he made it Tomeh. And the Tumah doesn't affect it. He stole the mattress and there was no Shinu, no nothing. Achinami here too. The Gozel Korban de Chavre. He stole what I called it yesterday, a ready-made korban. True, Abaye. You keep attacking me, Abaye, because you assume that the Ganav stole a regular animal, so to speak, secular animal, not belonging to Beis HaMikdash, and the Ganav turned it with his hekdesh to a Kodesh thing. And that was an issue with Rava. Says Rava Mapitom. Original owner, Mr. Reuven, the victim, poor man, he's the one who was Makdishit already. He was the one Makdishit. And the person, the Ganav, stole it as it is. And now, so now what's the Chiddush? Of course, Shimon cannot be atoned by Reuven's korban. Says Rashi, look at Rashi, the Gozel korban the Chavre. It's about 5-6 lines from the narrow lines. The Gozel korban the Chavre. Shikdish Chaveroi. The friend, the victim was Makdish, a good friend, yeah? Vele oilam lifne Yiush. And there was no Yiush really. No Yiush. He's still frantically searching for his korban. The Itzrich Lashmuinan, the Chiddush is, so what's a Chiddush? Well, it's not yours. How can it be miskaper? The Eina Oila L'Rotzen Klal V'Afilu L'Bainim Arishoinim. That I didn't tell you yesterday. Let's say Shimon brings the korban. Maybe I would say Reuven is miskaper. Or Oila. Lamaitze Tosafos gets very stuck on what kind of korban we're talking about, but I'm sparing you this one. It's difficult enough without it. In other words, let's say Reuven has to bring chatas. Shimon stole it from him and brought chatas. I would say, well, Shimon, you got your nose to spite your face. What do you now? Reuven will be miskaper. Says the Torah, no. Reuven doesn't get kapara and Shimon doesn't get kapara, and that's a chiddush. Even though there's no Yiush that belongs to Reuven, or maybe Oila. Reuven wants to bring a nice gift to Hashem Oila, and Shimon, the big chacham, stole it and brought it. I would say, okay, so Reuven would benefit. Yeah, Reuven would say no. A stolen korban just ain't working. Doesn't work for anybody. Lishna achrina, or another explanation. The Gozel korban the Chavri. And this is something which I think Baruch said yesterday. Baruch, afilu lacher Yiush lo kanye. A korban, even after Yiush, the Ganav cannot acquire. Why? The korban enu nigzal. You cannot steal someone's korban once it is already been dedicated to Hashem. You know why? Because it doesn't belong to Reuven anymore. He belongs to Hashem. You can't steal from Hashem. The kol hecha de isei, wherever the korban may be, begaza de rachmana isei, really belongs to the house of Hashem. When Shimon steals from Reuven an already dedicated korban, that's already mukdash to Hashem, well, Reuven and Shimon, you're like stupid children playing over who is the owner of a korban which is not neither yours nor his. Really belongs to Hashem. In Mela we say that the gezeila here just Pashut doesn't apply. Yet loy kanye doesn't belong to Shimon, and Shimon cannot be bringing into Beis Hamikdash anyways, because Shimon cannot steal or cannot acquire even with Yiush and even with everything, because it doesn't belong to him. It belongs to the Aibishter. That's the sikkim of the Inyan. Okay, we are about to start on many other things, but first I know you have questions. We are now in the 2 dots. I basically made this chart that's based on the Shulchan Aruch. Yeah. So with the formulas that I talk about, obviously the olive kinyan, that goes without saying. Maybe I should write it. In the next one, I'll improve it. You always have to have a kinyan, chotzer, or meshicha, or agbo, or whatever. After that, what happens? The king of all shinuim, the definitely number one, the CEO, the main guy of shinuim is shinui. What shinui ma'aseh she'eino chozer lebriyosoi. Shinui ma'aseh she'eino chozer lebriyosoi means physical change. You took wood and you carved it. You changed the shape of the wood. You made it into a chair, into a table, into a Chinese, I don't know, doll, whatever. You made something that's a kinyan alone. Doesn't need use, and we'll explain more why. Tosafos, if we get there at the end of the shiur, Tosafos gives a very clear explanation. Now, another kinyan is irreversible name or status change, which is called in English Shinui Hashem. There's no clear physical change man made. It's a change in status. And you're right, Ellen, yesterday, we could say also that when you change something from chulin to hekdesh, it's also called Shinui Hashem. If people call it differently, before and after, in the new shape, is not so different physically, but it's different in its status, in its essence, and people give it a different name. If it's irreversible, it's a kinyan. For example, a lamb that became a ram. We will never become a lamb again. Maybe the next Gil. But right now, the ram will stay ram until 120. So because that's called Shinui Hashem, we say what? That is koneh without Yiush. These Shinuim are so strong. Who needs Yiush? They're king of the road on their own. Of course you need kinyan. Nothing starts without kinyan, Ellen. Yeah? By the way, I don't know why you guys are so happy. We said a few days ago that from a talet to idol is not called Shinui Hashem. right? Because it was said that a day-old taleh is called rem, and a day-old little calf is called already a show. Says the Shach. The Shach is one of the 14 Shulchan Aruch. Fantastic thing he says. He says it's true that in the times of the Gemara that was the reality, but today is different. Today, everybody, wherever they are, they have different names for. They don't call the day-old baby a bull. They call it a calf. They call it an egel. And you go by Lashon Bnei Adam of that current generation, because it's just a reality thing of Chosh and Mishpat. And Mimele says that Shinu Hashem She'enu Choizer. Now, to the next one, not in the yellow line, Yiush plus domain change. Although I don't want to discuss it, but we touched on it from Tosafos. A Shinu Reshus is not as strong as the other ones. If the Ganav, number one, stole it, well, he did obviously, and he sold it on, he's a big soicher. Who cares how it came to my shop? Don't ask questions, yeah? I got it for very, very cheap, yeah? So now the stolen good, lo aleinu, he sells on. So that's called Shinu Reshus. Not, you got the difference, Moshe. Not how we got to him. I was getting away from him. That alone is not so strong, and therefore you need another formula, another variant, another variable called Yiush. In other words, if the person, the Ganav stole it, pulled it from him, the person says, that oy vavoy creates a space in which my selling on to another guy, let's say I'm the thief, will actually take effect. And then I'm already cheating. I'm telling you the end of the story. Therefore, there you need Yiush and Shinu Reshus. Next, please. Yiush with reversible name. That's going to be in today's Gemara. It's going to be a huge story today. I hope we get there. What happens if there's Yiush and Shinu Hashem Achoizer Lebriosoi? Let's say a person did a change, or it happened by itself. The item has a new status now, a new name, but it can be changed again. It can be revoked again. That we'll discuss today. I'm not talking about it now because we'll talk about it a lot. If we're ready in the chart, let's go to the last ones. These are the ones that flunk the test. They don't make it. What about Yiush by itself? Just Yiush. I'm telling the end of the tale. No, Yiush alone ain't working. If the person was Miyash, but there was no Shinui Shem, no Shinui Reshus, no Shinui Maisa, no Shinui my grandmother, no Shinui, just Yiush is not koneh. It's not koneh. And by the way, we can interpret both Rabbah and Rav Yosef that way. Depends how you learn. The one before, the penultimate one, what about a Shinui HaChoizer Le Briosoi? Let's say, says the Shulchan Aruch, let's say I took very primitive looking kind of planks of wood. Straight, plates of wood, planks of wood, plywood, and I made them into a very primitive kind of box. All I did was, like a 10-year-old in the arts and crafts, all I did is bang, bang, bang a few nails, but really the actual boards did not change their actual shape, okay? It didn't carve or sand or anything. And we can tell the Ganav, mister, you can very easily undo it. You can bring it back to its original form very easily. That is Shinui Maaseh HaChoizer Lebriosoi. It's reversible. And therefore that is not koneh. Nisht kinyan. It's not koneh at all. Because that's not called a real Shinui. Okay, that was the introduction. I recommend you look at the chart yourselves. It's not the final product, the chart. I'll tell you, I'll be very honest with you now, and I'm saying this online. It's a work in progress, and even I don't know exactly what there's more than saying the daf from now. I learned it in the past, so I'm saying this is what I've gathered so far. I looked at the Mefoshim, looked at Shulchan Aruch. I did learn yesterday's daf very much as thorough as I could, but again, these things are Shinui Achoizer. These things can change, but Begadol, okay, I prefer no questions, but quick. We're now entering another area of Tumah V'Tara, and this page is very, very Yisoidik, is very fundamental to understand everything. A small introduction. What happens if a tumah, a dead rodent, a dead person, nida, zav, whoever, what happens if they touch something tumah that generates tumah, avatuma, if it touches raw material? Let's have a raw piece of skin, of hide, not yet nice leather, or even leather, but I'm a tanner and then I make shoes, but I have a raw piece of wood is it for sure not, a raw piece of leather. It was touched by something tumah. Is it susceptible to receive tumah? No. Only kli. That's always the rule. Always a kli. something that is ready to be used, ready to use, that's mekabel tuma, susceptible to get tuma. Raw material is not susceptible to get tuma. Okay, so let's have a raw piece of leather. Let's say it's not so raw, it's already leather, but my plan is to make shoes out of it, or I want to look cool. Leather jacket from a motorcycle. And right now it's just a piece of leather, and it was touched by 5 dead mice and 5 dead people. Doesn't make any difference. It's nothing, not susceptible. Very nice. After I made it into a shoe, proper shoe that can be worn, then it's mekabel tuma. If something happens, it's susceptible to receive tuma. Now let me ask you a question. When I was once in South Africa, I saw a very nice, like a rug on the floor. The rug was basically, to me, looked like a raw, for lack of a better word, of like a skin of an animal. The animal skin was the rug. Okay, so then, well, why am I telling you this story? Not to excite you about my Chutz La'aretz stories, to tell you that sometimes you have the following situation. You have 2 people, they both have seemingly a plain piece of leather. One of them says, hey, wow, hey, I'm not going to make shoes out of that. That would be a very nice, very natural looking kind of rug, or some kind of cover, or challah cover, or just a plain tablecloth from leather. That's very cool and shtati. And the other guy would say, ma pitam, well, that's not my plan. I want to make shoes out of it. Aha. So let's say that rodent touch, a shirt's touch number 1, would be mekabel tuma. For him, that's a final product. That's a finished product. He's a piece of leather. For the other guy, no, he would not be mekabel tuma, because for him, it's still part of the process, and it's not yet the shoe. It all depends in here. It all depends on the machshava, the intention, the kavanah, the machshava. Now we are ready to go. Bezrat Hashem. Eisve Abai of Yosef. Abai is now challenging Rav Yosef. Abai is being everyone's devil's advocate. In other words, Abai before and challenged Rabbah, now challenges Rav Yosef, because Lamaisa was a talmid of both. Abai was the student of both, so he's asking both Rabbein. Eisve Abai Rav Yosef. Oyo shel Baal Abais. A piece of leather, pieces of leather belonging to Baal Abais. Baal Abais is a person who's not a professional tanner or leather dealer. He's a person that has a piece of leather for his own use. He's going to use it. He's not going to sell it on. Then machshava metamoson. If he thought, hey, freeze right there. He thought this piece of leather, that will do the trick. Wow, what a beautiful gift for whatever, my son, my daughter. Nice piece of leather as whatever, as a cover, as the mat, whatever. Then the machshava alone makes it not tome, makes it mekabel tuma. It's not called a finished product, because in my mind, that's the last stop in the process of development. I'll leave it as is, as it is. So now it's going to be mekabel tuma. I want that raw piece of leather. That's my natural style. That's what I like. Very nice. Vishal abdan. But a person who's an abdan, a person who's a leather dealer and maker, and he sometimes keeps it for himself, and sometimes he sells it on to other people. Ein machshava metamoson. The machshava of his, if he decided, I'm going to leave that as it is, it's not yet mekabel tuma. Why not? Because he is very likely to sell it on to other people. He needs 3 things: kesef, money, and geld. So now he's going to sell it on to other people. It's very, very likely that they're different style, and they're going to use it to make shoes, or leather boots, or leather whatever, hats. Mimela, what? His machshava is not strong enough to actually fixate it one way or the other. Now we come to the main point. Shel Ganav. What happens if a good friend, Mr. Ganovsky, what happens if the Ganav stole a piece of leather from someone? So before we talk about Ganovim, I'll ask you a question. Let's say Shlomo has a piece of leather, and I say to Shlomo, this piece of leather should stay that way, and I decided it will stay that way. And Shlomo says, no, I'm going to make shoes out of it. Is it mekabel tuma or not? Will I decide for Shlomo's piece of leather? No, I'm not the owner. Who am I to tell Shlomo what to do? Yeah, Mimela what? Mimela, it's enough he lends me the phone. That's good enough. So now, Mechitesi, a person is not the owner, cannot decide on if this is the final stage or not. Says the Heilige Mishnah, Shel Ganav machshava metamoson. If a Ganav stole from someone, the Ganav is the one who comes secretly, the one who comes, cloak and dagger, comes, behind the scenes. Now the Ganav stole it. And now if he decided the Ganav, that the piece of leather should stay that way, that's why he likes the stolen good, then it's really mekabel tuma, meaning the ganav has the right to decide. The ganav has the right to decide the status of the leather. Why is that? You know why? Because he is Baruch Hashem. He is the owner. The ganav is the owner. Why is the ganav the owner? Because there was Yiush. We assume the ganav. We don't know who the ganav is. The ganav came in the middle of the night. Israeli police doesn't do much about it, as you all know, Anglos, right? They don't exactly take evidence. It's not the FBI over here. And now the ganav stole in the middle of the night. He has no idea. It should never happen to you. He has no idea that who the ganav is. He will not take him to court, and he will not get the leather bag. Mimele Yiush is koneh. And now the ganav, who's post Yiush, but the piece of leather remained exactly the same, belongs to the ganav. You know, it belongs to him because Yiush alone is koneh. Oh yeah, Akiva's chart is wrong. But if the person was a gazlan, you were holding a piece of leather in the post office, and all of a sudden the guy came to you with a gun and said, or without a gun, and he said, he snatched it and he said, "That's mine, mister," okay, in your face, then the machshava of his is not metame. Oh, what? Because by a gazlan, the person says, "I'll take him to court. I know exactly who he is." There were all these nice people in the post office, and they saw who the gazlan is. I'll look for him. Here, I have his face. I took his face with a camera. I took a picture. I know who he is. I'm going to take him to Beis Din, and therefore I'm not miyash. Because I, the victim, the original owner, I'm not miyash, he is not the owner because there was no Yiush. So he's not the owner. If he's not the owner, he cannot do or think or decide anything regarding a piece of leather that's like not his. That's Tanakama. Rabbi Shimon Oimer, Rabbi Shimon says, you're right, but just the opposite. Rabbi Shimon twists it the other way. Chiluf advorim. I agree with your concept, but I apply it just the other way around. Shel gazlan machshava metamason. A gazlan, there's Yiush. When a person saw the gazlan in the post office, or in the bank, or in the merkaz, or wherever, or in New York somewhere, a gazlan, if the gazlan snatched it from you, you don't mess up with Mr. Gazlan. You can take him to court. He's the sheriff's best friend. He is the sheriff himself. He's the town's sheriff. Nobody dares to go against the Gazlan. He's the Gavra Alima. So you know that if he chapped it, it's a lost case. And a nice piece of leather will never see you again. And Mimela what? Mimela there's Yiush. Because there's Yiush, if the Gazlan actually thinks, oh, that's my favorite piece of leather, and I want to freeze it that way, so to speak, his machshava works. Because Yiush took place already. If Yiush took place already, it is B'shel Ganav ein machshava metamason, but Yishalon is Yashua B'anim. Like Ganav, it's the other way around. A Ganav is a scaredy cat. A Ganav is a scared guy, and I'll find him. I'll find him. He's not the sheriff's friend. He's scared of the sheriff. So a Ganav, in other words, we have a machlekes in psychology of people who are more miyash. The Ganav who you don't know, and it's hard to find technically, or the Gazlan who is a thug, who is a bum, which everyone's scared of. One thing we know for sure. Ishma mina Yiush kono. One thing we see for sure. Ganav, Gazlan, or UFO. One thing is for sure. Whoever Yiush applies to, Ganav / Gazlan, once there was Yiush, that's it. He's koneh. We didn't see there was any physical change. Verkehrt. We said there was a raw piece of leather, and he decided, hey, that's kind of a cool piece of leather. The Ganav or Gazlan decided, why should I make leather jacket? The Gazlan has 10 leather jackets with a mafia, with his gang logo on it. He doesn't need more. He wants to leave it as it is. He wants to leave it like a raw piece of leather. And he has the right to, not right, it applies because Yiush is koneh. Oy vay vay. How can you, Rav Yosef, tell me that Yiush is not koneh? Looks like in this Mishnah from a Seches Kelim, it looks like Yiush is koneh. Question. You see, the Yiush alone is koneh. Question. Amalek. So now he answers, and he says, answers Rav Yosef. We're talking here about a case in which he was mekatzea the piece of leather, which means there's raw and there's raw. This guy, the Ganav, is not interested in making any other important products out of it. He's not going to make it into leather shoes or leather jacket or even leather belt. But he wants to leave it nice and raw, but he still wants to, lekatzea, I would call, he wants to straighten it out. He wants to cut the corners and make it nice and, square it out with a knife. And therefore, because lekatzea is shinui, and kitsua in Rashi's language is called shinui maise, it's a physical change, right? Before it had all these rough edges, and he cut off the rough edges to just straighten up nicely. It's not a whole new product, but it's called shinui maise. That's why Rashi says shinui maise and Yiush. Don't look at the chart. The chart is maskana. Because there's a physical change plus Yiush, that's why it works, says Rav Yosef. Guys, you should be more excited now, because up until now we thought Rav Yosef does not believe in Yiush B'chlal. Rav Yosef is Rav Nachman Breslev and Yiush B'chlal Klal. Here Rav Yosef is now tweaking his opinion, is caving in a little bit. And he says Yiush doesn't work, I meant alone. Only Yiush doesn't work, but that's aloha. But Yiush plus the physical change of squaring it out here and there, a little bit in the corner, and that is not reversible, mister. That together, Yiush and Shinui Maise is koneh. I know it's not like the chart, it's not the maskona. Maskif lo Rabba bar Rav Chanan. Rabba bar Chanan is now attacking what we just suggested. V'lo itzva shonukan. I'll prove to you from another Mishnah over there that the kind of product we talk about is itzva. Itzva basically is like a small table made out of leather, like a small leather piece to eat on. Yeah. Like a what? A tray. Simpler words. Thank you. It's a leather tray. Cool. Never saw a leather tray in my life. It's like a new placement, right? Like a placement. Yeah, under the cereal in the morning. Itzva shanukan. We're talking about itzva. The itzva ain't tzricha kitzua. And itzva normally a tray does not require the straightening out, the squaring out, the cutting in the corners. And even if you do it, it's not effective halachically because it's not something that has to be done. When people shape up, how do they call kitzua? When people cut off, how do they? Whatever. When people straighten the corners, cut the corners, rough edges of the tray, it's not necessary. I can use it without it. It's just in order to beautify it, to make it more aesthetic. So therefore, it's not called a shinui maise, because it's not necessary and significant. Let's continue, then I'll explain more. Tetnan. After that Mishnah quoted, I'll explain everything much better. Kol mokum shen chisaron melocha. Whenever you don't really have a chisaron in melocha, whenever you don't really need mamish, the development, the next stage, that melacha, that work you did with it, that improvement, machshava metamasoi, then machshava alone is metame. Let me explain. If I want to make shoes, leather, even a belt, which is more primitive, if I have a big piece of leather, meter by meter, I want to make one piece of the belt, yeah. So then I have to cut it. I'm not going to wear a huge belt like that. I'm gonna use Yiush. Yeah, and what am I going to wear? Just a small belt. Cutting is necessary. When cutting is necessary, then your machshava does make a difference. You can't decide this is tameh when you know you're going to develop it later and cut it further into a belt. But if I know that really all I want to do is leave it that way, but it's very nice. Ooh, I like the natural look, but I still want to cut the corners here and there to make it look more aesthetic. It's the same product in a more embellished way. That's all. Then we say machshava is metame, because really I do want to leave it that way. The small beautifying here and there, the shvonzelach in the corner, it's not a real shinui. Therefore, once I thought and decided that's my favorite leather tray, that's my favorite leather challah cover. I saw challah cover from leather once, yeah. So mimela, that alone, the machshava is metame. I am going to cut it. The cutting is not really significant. It's just beautifying it. You're not making a whole new thing. Now you get it. Says the Mishnah. When the melacha is not necessary, then the machshava is already metame. I'm really leaving it that way conceptually. Yes, chisaron melacha. But if the melacha, the new development is really necessary, because shoes have to be cut and changed for a piece of leather. I'm not going to wear a piece of leather on my foot. Ein machshava metamosoi, chutz mina itzva. Except for the itzva. In the case of itzva, as I explained, the itzva, although there is chisar and melacha, I will, yes, cut it, but I can already consider it as a done deal and decide that's the itzvah, and it will become tomeh even before the small cutting in the corner, because that small cutting in the corner is not so significant. Okay? So Mimela, so what? Explains Tosafos like this. You're talking about shinui. It's not called shinui maaseh. Even though I cut the corners and it will never be attached again, but such a change is not a real change. When you have an itzvah, which is a meter by meter, and it has like shvonzalach, like rough edges, and I'm cutting them, it's not really called shinui maaseh. It's not a whole new creation over here. And therefore, what you said, Rav Yosef, is wrong. You, Rav Yosef, what did you answer me? What did you tell me? You told me, wait a second, Yiush alone is not koneh. Yiush with a shinui is koneh. That's not called shinui. Give me a break. It's not called shinui. Give it a small cutting here, a small cutting there to make your wife happy, your daughter happy. That's not called shinui. Mimela what? Mimela, back to square one. Yiush is the only item here that makes a difference. Yiush alone is koneh. Yes, Rav Yosef, you didn't say Yiush is koneh. Elo Merubah. Therefore, says Rava the following: Hi Milsa, this idea, this concept, this word, Kashi barabba Rav Yosef esrin without shnin. Rabba bothered Rav Yosef with this question for 22 years. Wow. Rav Yosef for 22 years didn't know what to answer. He did not manage to give an answer. Ad the Yosef Rav Yosef Bereisha Uparka. When Rav Yosef became Rosh Yeshiva, Rav Yosef eventually became Rosh Yeshiva. Hashem gave him more siyata d'shmaya. They say it's more in Rosh Hashanah. Daf Tafei Amud Beis says when a person becomes a leader, Hashem gives him more siyata d'shmaya. And then Rav Yosef, as Rosh Yeshiva, managed to answer give the answer. Here comes Mr. Drum roll. Shinu Hashem keshinu ma'aseh dami. Shinu Shem, meaning a change in the name. If people call it a different name, even though it's physically not so different, the physical change is not that significant, but people give it a different name. Yeah, it's like Shinui Maaseh. It's as good as Shinui Maaseh. Soon we'll see reservations later. Shinui Maaseh my time. This is very, very crucial. Please, everybody. Shinui Maaseh my time. Hosami kol eitzim hashta kelim. Why is Shinui Maaseh considered a Shinui? Before it was wood, it was eitzim, raw pieces of wood. Hashta bnei choirin stam. Hashta kelim. Now it's a kli. Now it's a table. It's a chair. It's a box. It's a I don't know what. Shina Hashem nami. Shina Hashem is the same. Mikoro karule mashcha. Before the cutting the corners, before that shaping up and it's squaring it nicely, they used to call it mashcha. Mashcha is what in Aramaic? Leather. Piece of leather. It was just a piece of leather. That was a title in the window shop. That's what people call it. Hashta abrazin. Now it's called Abrazin, stam. Abrazin, which is what? Now it's called Abrazin, which is Itzvah, which Alan told me is a tray. Because it has a different name. Before it was called leather. Now it's called a leather tray. Mimela, that Shinoi Hashem works. So now the Gemara introduced already. Wait, we've seen all three. People weren't happy. Shinoi Rashus, we touched on with Hekdesh, that will be discussed later. We saw Shinoi Maaseh. And everyone agrees to Shinui Maaseh that works alone without Yiush. Shinui Maaseh is the big king over here. It was raw material. Now it's all new thing. It was pieces of wool. Now it's a beautiful sweater. Who could tell? Ugly duckling. It's a whole new creation here. Now we introduce the third one. Shinui what? Shinui Shem. If it has, even if it's not so different physically, but the Shem is different. People call it a different name. It's also called the Shinui. The truth is, Shinui Shem and Shinui Maaseh are not the same. Tosafos points out, but on purpose, I'm not telling you Tosafos because it will be much better if you continue the Gemara will speak it out. Because Shinui Shem is a little bit inferior to Shinui Maaseh. We'll see that later. But right now, they are on the same club. Again, Shinui Shem means a status name. Shem, name, yeah? Shinui Maaseh is Maaseh, the Maaseh. When it's really different physically. It was a piece of wool, now is a jacket. Yeah? Leather became shoes. That's Shinui Maaseh. That works perfectly as long as it's not reversible. Shinui Shem is now, Shinui Shem is enjoying a moment of glory. If you have Shinui Shem, by the way, Shinui Shem, lich'oira, actually I can already tell you now the difference. The Pashtus of Yosef could tell you here, to Mechlokes Rishonim, that Shinu Hashem is working together with Yiush. Because the Ganav, there was Yiush, right? We saw Yiush appearing here. So one could say, and that's some Rishonim hold, if you have Yiush and Shinui Hashem, that works together. But maybe Shinui Hashem alone doesn't work. Okay? Well, Shinui Maisa, he is the king of the world. Shinui Maisa works without Yiush, for sure. Okay. Continue. Beautiful. Frag the Gemara, asks the Gemara question. Varei Marish, you know Marish? Marish is not a Polish guy. Marish is a beam, beaming, smiling. Marish is a beam of wood. What? Varei Marish. Marish is a piece of wood that you built into your house. The Ika Shinu Hashem. A Marish, once you take a piece of wood or pieces of wood, and you now built a whole, let's say, the Gemara brings an example, a whole roof or a whole ceiling out of many slabs of wood, that's Shinui Hashem. Even though the physical change is not really there, because you still have slabs of wood before and after, but the name is different. Then you call Kishura. Kishura is a beam, a plank, a beam. The Hashta, now it's called Tlolo. Tlolo is like Sel. Sel is what? Shadow. Now it's called a ceiling that gives shadow. So now the Gemara is going to shade. You're right. Thank you. I appreciate it. But Shtat Lola, it's a shade, which means it's a ceiling, really. Betanan. So even though the piece of wood went through Shinui Hashem, I'll surprise you now with a question from Mishnah. It says in the Mishnah later on, Alamarish Gozul Shabnoi Babira. There's a case of a person who stole a marish, or a few of them. A marish is as I told you, a beam, and he stole it and he actually built it into his bira, into his nice house, like a palace. The Ganav has a nice house built from other people's beams, yeah? Shenoitel Domov. We say we don't ask the Ganav to basically dismantle his house and start taking out the beam, but we say, okay, you stay with the beam and you give cash. Why is that? Not fair. Because of the Takonas Hashavim. What's the Takonas Hashavim? Because we always want as Shlomo said, we want the Ganovim to do tshuva. We want to facilitate the Ganovim to do tshuva. Yiddishkeit is never vindictive, is not out there to get the guy. You know, he had such difficult childhood. You know what? In order for him to do tshuva, we say, you know what? Okay, blibe with your thing, stay with your marish, and give cash to the owner. Wait a second, what? The only reason we say he stays with a stolen good and pays cash, there's a special Takonas Hashavim. What does that Takonas Hashavim mean? We should have, yes, forced you to take it out, but we're being nice to you. Mapitam. Wait, Alav Hachi, if not for the special dispensation of this Chachamim, juvenile delinquent program, if not for that, Hachi, Hodar Be'enei. Wait a second, you're telling me if not for special Takon of Chazal, I would have told the person, hey, mister, I don't care about your mommy not giving you pizza on time or your father telling you things. You have to give back the beam out of the house. Please do dismantle your house, undo your house, and give back the mark. Why? Wait a second. Why is that? If you're telling me that really Shinui Shem is called Shinui, and let's assume, says Tosafos, there's Yiush, the guy's a Gazlan, and it's inside his fancy palace of Ganav. The owner was Miyash, plus Shinui Hashem, because before it was called the beam, and now it's called a ceiling. Hey, who needs takonas? Why? Oh, being nice to you're not being nice to him. It's just simple kinyan. If you are right, Rabbi Yosef, that Shinui Hashem works with Yiush, then without being especially nice and making a special dispensation and all these nice ideas, it's just his. It's halachically his. For crying out loud, it's his because it's Shinui Hashem with Yiush. That's a question. Rabbi Yosef says, Rabbi Yosef, no. Marish Shmoy Olov. Marish retains the name. Yeah, retains the name, like a feminist woman. Retains the name. Marish Shmoy Olov. He keeps the name. Detanya. What does it mean? Marish, even after it's built in the house, is still called a Marish, as we see in the Brisa. We bring a pasuk from what? No. Maybe because theoretically you could, but without taking apart, even though it's still in the thing, maybe that's a reason, but maybe. Even though it's still in the house and it's part of a whole ceiling and he already has all chandelier there. It still retains the name. In the dictionary, in the picture book of the children, it's still called Marish. That's the idea. There's no Shinei Hashem. There's no Shinei Hashem. The Tanya. It says about in Yechezkel, he gives a description of Beis Hamikdash HaShlishi. It says that the Tosafos has the sides of the house. Elu HaMelatzitin. They're called Melatzitin. Melatia is like a latte. We also say it in Yiddish. Is a beam. The ubim. No, it's called what? The ubim. Elu HaMerishois. Oh, even though the ubim are the thick parts of the planks in Beis Hamikdash, they're still called marish. Even the planks built in Beis Hamikdash itself, which we'll see soon, are called marish. Huh? So you see, marish is marish is marish. Same thing. That's one answer. Abzera Omar, comes Abzera, and here comes with the big yesod, which I told you. Things are slowly, everything is coming to its tikkun. Abzera Omar, Shina Chozer Lebriosoi, a reversible shinui, a revocable, reversible, b'shinui Hashem, lo havishinui. Wow. Says Abzera, depends what kind of shinui Hashem you're talking about. A shinui Hashem of the leather will never be the same. Once the leather is cut, although it's not a significant shinui, but once a piece of leather turned by beautifying it a bit here and there, shaping up, it becomes a new name, becomes a tray, irreversible. It's not a choshev shinui, but it's a shinui that there's a point of no return. And therefore, over there, shinui ha-shem, which is irreversible, and that is like the chart, my friends, shinui Hashem, irreversible, plus Yiush is koneh. In the chart, we say even without Yiush, because some Rishonim learned also get different what I said. They take away Yiush, yeah, and they say even without Yiush. Now, if the change is reversible, such as a beam in the wall is very difficult for him to do that because he's going to stay without a ceiling. He's going to have leakage from the neighbors. But the mice, the piece of wood, the plank is the same plank, yeah, maybe with some nails here and there. The plank is a plank, like a privet or in the floor. You lived in America, I never, like, right? There's a lot of wooden planks on the floor. So Mimela, yeah, you can take it out. It's terrible, but it retains the shape. If it retains the shape, it's going to go back to its original name. That is called Shinu Shem HaChoizer L'Briosoi, which means I disagree with Rabbi Yosef, and I say Marish once built has a different name. It's called the ceiling, it's called the floor. But Shinu Hashem that can be, that you can't turn back the clock, that alone is not called Shinui, which means, again, Mechlokes Rishonim. Some Rishonim say it's Bechlal, not Shinui, and some say it would be Shinui together with Yiush, and that's what we say in the chart. Yiush together with Shinui Hashem that's reversible. By the way, Shulchan Aruch himself says Yesh Omim v'Yesh Omim. Some say this, some say the other. Let's summarize what we have. Shinui Rashus, leave me alone for now. We'll talk about it later. We spoke about it in the Hekdesh. The main stars today were Shinui HaMaaseh and Shinui Hashem. Shinui Hashem was the big star of today's show. Shinui Maaseh, he is a Chosh V'Helig Shinui. He made a physical change, man-made, not naturally made. Oh, it's a whole new reality, a whole new change. He doesn't need Yiush. Who cares about Yiush? I don't need this Yiush to change. I'm good with my hands. I'll take the leather, make it into a leather shoe. I took the thing physical. I don't care about his Yiush. It's a whole new reality. That's a kinyan. Yeah, of course, it was kinyan before. Shinui Hashem is number 2 in the list. Shinui Hashem. I made a small change, and therefore it became a whole new reality called a tray. Or, by the way, let's go back to the beginning of the sugya. The little kid that became a ram is also Shinui Hashem, but that's more of a choshev Shinui Hashem. The Shinui Hashem that's obviously irreversible because the big ram will never be a kid again, right? Yeah, many people would like to be 20 again once they're 60, and it's not going to happen. Only next Gilgul. So what? The big ram is Shinui Hashem, and such a Shinui Hashem works either with or without Shinui. La Alocha, without Shinui. In our sugya, there are 2 ways to understand it. What about Shinui Hashem that's reversible? Shinui Hashem that can be changed back. For example, a piece of wood is a piece of wood. Now I placed it in my ceiling. Oh, look, darling, I came back with a piece of wood. No more leakage from the neighbors. I'll put it up there, and it just right stops the hole in the ceiling. Ah, Hashem loves me, although I'm a thief. And what? And now what? It's what? It has all new name. It's called a ceiling. Yeah, it's a new name. But that new name can be reversed. physically. I can just undo it and bring it the same shape exactly. That's called Shinui Hashem Choizel L'Briosai. And that is in a lower status. Either it doesn't work at all, according to some Rishonim, it works only together with Yiush. Okay? That's what we say. By the way, Shinui Maise, which is reversible. Let's say I took a piece of wood and I banged it into the box, and now it's a whole new thing, a whole new box. Then it won't work even with Yiush. Shinui Maise, Choizel L'Briosai easily is not called anything because it's not a Shinui, it's reversible completely. It's not even Shinui Shem. No, the Yiush doesn't make a difference. No, Yiush is irrelevant, just not a Shinui. So Yiush alone, any of them. The Seder. Okay, I thought we'd do Tosafos, maybe we'll do it tomorrow, but Baruch Hashem, as far as I'm concerned, this Shiur is beyond my expectations. Questions, comments, okay? You can see the chart online, and thank you very much. Tzlacha Rabba to everybody. May we not know Tzoros anymore, only good things.